I've come back into the same woods again. I've parked literally the same place I was here last week, and I'm probably no more than about 50 yards from where I did the landscape last week, which was just through the other side of these trees here where there's another lake. And I've come to the first lake this morning, and straight away, I mean, we've got this really calm water at the moment. There's no breeze whatsoever, and I just spotted all these branches totally mirroring in the water, and it's nice with the dark water as well. So I have tried a few images here, and I mean, even on the display now, it almost looks like a monocolour. So I have, in actual fact, I've tried with a square crop like I've got here, as well as switching to mono to see what the difference is like. And I've got to say, I'm really pleased with the way that looks. And I don't know if you see it here, I've got this little thin twig which keeps appearing in the display on the right hand side here. So I've literally had to just stand down on the edge here out of frame and just gently hold it back out of the picture for while I took the picture. And I think I'm going to move down here next. Wasn't sure how wet and everything it was down here, but fortunately it's solid ground. And once again, got these really nice reflections all in the water. I mean, there's a tree there which is actually in the water, this one overhanging the water. One of the rules on photography that you get, especially like in club photography, you've got the rule of thirds, and at the same time as well, it's usually where you put the horizon. So again, it's almost like putting it on the thirds again. So you either have 2/3 sky and 1/3 of the landscape, or 2/3 of the landscape and 1/3 of the sky. And this is a classical example of where you certainly break what those rules are, in that I'm actually taking the image, because it's a mirror image, I want to get it so that the horizon is effectively right in the middle of the image. And that works really well, because in the top half of the image you've got what we see normally if the water wasn't there, and in the bottom half I've got what is literally an almost mirror image, with the colours and everything slightly subdued a bit compared to what we see on the actual horizon. I think I'm going to also look at this tree again here. I've come round at a slightly different angle. It's almost like I need to concentrate on something different area. I mean, even that side with the greenery on the bank and getting that really nice tree trunk coming right across the water here where it's so thick and defined. That looks a really nice image. My only issue might be with these branches over the top, so I might have to get a lot lower down. One thing I will say is, using the tripod, I've learnt that you do slow yourself down a lot more and look what's there, taking your time over what image you're going to actually get in the frame. I mean, especially years ago when I first started photography, we all naturally do it. We take pictures at head height, and always used to be that thing in my mind that try and get low down, or try and get a different viewpoint that we don't normally see with the eye. But that's all great, but I don't know whether we actually physically see those images normally. Yes, they can have a lot more impact, but I think sometimes actually taking those images at head height, if you can get really good images, I think that's what people sort of associate more with, that they just didn't see that. I've come down lower now. I mean, we've got the sun starting to peer through the water there, and even when I'm down here, I've got these highlights in the bottom of the water there. So I've just had to frame in that much closer so that I get the main trunk that's fallen in the top of the image going across the top there, and then mirrored in the bottom. Got this greenery in the side here, so I am slightly underexposed, which is what I prefer. I just find that if you've got underexposed, you can pull out more on the shadows, but if you burn out the highlights too much, it's harder to bring them back in line. Me, I personally think I struggle with landscape images, but I suppose this is landscape images. I'm taking part of the scenery, whether it be the section of the bank with the reflections or the water part of this tree. Perhaps that's just my style of photography. I've been watching a lot of these trees in the water that are now actually lit with the sunlight, so I've got the sun behind me, and the reflections they're creating here in the water I think was absolutely amazing. It was this tree here that I first see when I first walked along here, but there's just so many overhanging branches on this side that were just, I suppose, making it messy. Nothing very distinct, and I've come to this opening here. The only problem is I've got this sort of dying off piece here where the leaves are still on there, so I'm trying to concentrate on the actual reflections of this long tree in the water, because there's still a fair bit of greenery on there from the ivy, and just try and get the top of the tree. Now, because of this, and I am right by the water bank, so it's not like I can go down low or anything like that, I had to extend my tripod literally to its max. So I've got all the legs extended and I've got the centre column extended. The only problem is that I'm now at head height here with the camera, and you can see that I'm looking up at my display and getting reflections from the sky. So I've had to also use my mobile to try and take the image and see and frame it up and see, but obviously the quality on here is not going to be the same as what I see on the camera. And this is how quick the sun is moving, because this tree was fully lit up when I first got here, a lot like that one, and it's now gone dark. In the last video, I was literally right at the other end there, where that bench is, at the end of the water there, looking down this end of this small lake, and that's the bench that I was also trying to include in the image. Now, looking at it from this end, it's, as you can see, it's all very much in shadow and shade, that end, which is why I was in some ways struggling to get sort of detail out of the foreground. But you can see this end is, certainly this side is where all the light is. So once again, I'm looking at these reflections that's in the image here. And I did take a step back here further to start with, to possibly include this small tree in the front here as some form of foreground interest, but it's just still too much in the shadows and it needs some form of light. So I've concentrated more on again, different styles again, like a letterbox format, concentrating on part of the image. So you'll see I've now come into the woods a little bit further off the beaten track. First thing I noticed was these, and I thought, oh, some form of a fungi here. Hadn't got a clue what they were, so I did have a good wander around here and spotted these as well. Just did a search on an app that I've got where I take a picture of them, and it's come up saying it could be toothed jelly fungus. While I was then wandering around, I've been having a good old wander around here and not spotted too much. And I was then coming back, thought, right, well, okay, which one of these do I want to photograph? And all of a sudden, I just come up and found this really miniature fungi that I've got there on the camera. I do actually like these ones on here, but I'm not so much sure about access. I'm thinking maybe camera right down low in there. So what have I got from this trip today? I've often heard it spoken about that people have a style of photography. Now, to me, is that style just one thing or is it multiple things? Because what I've found today is that where I've gone for more like the landscape images, it has been part of the scenery, especially like in around the lakes at the beginning of the trip here, where I was concentrating on reflections, and it's just part of the scene. That, I would say, is my style of photography for landscapes, if you want to call it that. The other thing as well is that I like the macro side. So even walking up on the last little bit here, I'm constantly looking for the little things. It isn't just the fungi on the ground. It's often like little buds that appear on new branches that are coming out for what will be the new life come the spring. And I think it's that intrigues me. It's the small things or the parts of the scenery where we don't necessarily just take it in. I mean, for example, we can look on the back here, and even though we've got that bright white car down there, you don't, and it does draw the eye normally, but you don't go looking at that white car to see what's the detail about the car. So by concentrating image on a small area like that, all of a sudden you would look at what the spokes are like on the wheels and things like that. So that's probably where my style of photography is. It's part of something, not necessarily the whole of something. And I suppose because of that style of looking at part of things, that's probably why I often struggle that when I come into a nice big open scene of the countryside with sweeping dry stone walls and everything like that, and it looks really picturesque, the sort of thing you'd see on a postcard, I struggle to find that image taking the whole scene in, whereas really I should look at that and then just say that, right, I actually like just a very small section of that scene. But when you do come out somewhere like this, you've got to keep your eyes open everywhere. And from one of my recent trips, is look up into the sky, especially when you're in the trees. There is often things up high, and almost any time of the year as well. Look down at the ground. You will find things on the ground that we will always naturally miss because we are walking at that sort of 5-6 foot height where our eye level is, and we're always looking ahead in the distance. Please let me know your opinion on the images, and thanks a lot for watching.